The new 40-kilometre Beitbridge border fence is not fit for purpose, and the 40 million rand spent on the project has been categorized as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. That is according to three government institutions: Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure, or the PWI, the Home Affairs Department, as well as the Standing Committee on Public Works. They made the comments after inspecting the fence at the weekend. They went there, they had a look at it. Both SCOPA and the Portfolio Committee have called for urgent action to be taken against those implicated in transgression in the construction of the fence. The Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works, Nolitha Ntobongwana, has said that Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille cannot be exonerated from this matter. Mkhuleko Hlengwa, the Chairperson of SCOPA, joins us now to discuss this. We're chatting to him over the phone. Good to have you. I'm so glad that we managed to at least get you. I know you've been in a meeting the entire night, so it's good to at least get you here. Thanks for joining us.
And absolutely, good morning to you and the viewers.
You went there, you saw this fence. What did you see?
Well, our worst fears were confirmed. What we had seen in the media reports, what we had seen in the presentations of the Department of Public Works on paper, is probably a better version of the fence than the actual fence itself. It is very unfortunate that we found what we found. The fence is substandard, not fit for purpose, and the material used, one must say that in certain instances it has rusted already, barely 3 months after being erected. There are gates along the 40 kilometers, one which I personally opened because it had no padlock, it was not locked, and the list of shortcomings is endless. Yeah. The fence is not consistent with its own specification. It was supposed to be 2.2 meters. It's 1.8 meters high. The wire is overstretched, and you can literally just break it off with your bare hands. There are over 120 breaches along that fence. There was no environmental assessment certificate for it. I mean, I can go on and on, but fundamentally, the reason why we went there was because, of course, there's the public outcry and our own concerns that we had as a committee. But the SIU report implicates 14 officials, and it is our expectation that the disciplinary processes must, be underway with immediate effect. And the ministerial directive is still under scrutiny and investigation by National Treasury, and we are expecting a report back this week so that we can determine the role of the minister in that regard. The procurement processes were inconsistent with the PFMA, the emergency spending protocols, and quite clearly everything was consistent with corruption, nepotism, favoritism, and a well-calculated preference for the service provider that was there. Yeah. And you're speaking about a situation here where before any work was done on site, over 21 million rands was paid to the service provider without any delivery on site. So it's good now that the SIU, which had investigated on the basis of secondment, will now actually continue the investigation on the basis of the proclamation, which is looking at all COVID-19 expenditure. So in conclusion on our part, the fence is not fit for purpose, and corruption took place insofar as this entire transaction was concluded.
So, I mean, these findings are scathing, and it basically is confirming everything that has been alleged with regard to the building of this fence, the procurement, the basic irregularities that have been found with this. It's now time for action. But before we get to what you mentioned about what should be done, recommendations, on your visit, and this really got to me, I must say, on your visit over the weekend, you say that the 37-year-old secondary fence that was decommissioned in 1994 was in a better physical condition than the one that is 5 months old. I mean, this is that for me is so frightening to think that a fence that's 5 months old in comparison to a fence that is, 30 years old, 20-something years old, is in worse off state.
Unfortunately, that is what we found. In fact, it is our opinion that had the 1984 fence been renovated, revamped, and improved, the state would not have incurred the losses that we did, but provided, of course, that the material was of the right quality. But what is also very clear is that the material that was used on the new fence is of such a poor quality and poor standard that it is easy to vandalize, and that there's probably more difficulty vandalizing the 1984 fence. So those are all the things really which come to the fore as to what actually happened. I think, Jan, the other issue which remains of particular concern to us and will require probing is the role of the South African National Defence Force, whether it's the consultation stages with DPWI or whether it's implementation and construction, and when, of course, the fence was handed over to them, to determine whether the fence did form part of the integrated plans of border management, because one of the glaring omissions in the contracts that were signed is the maintenance.
Mkhuleko we seem to have lost a little bit of connection there. Let's see if he hopefully does reconnect and come back, though. But sorry, Mkhuleko, we lost you. We lost you we lost you a little bit there. We didn't get what you were saying. Perhaps your last sentence we missed there.
So, yes, I was saying that all the things coupled together, the assessment you make, are the clearest indication to date that everything was done to favor a particular outlook, and that outlook was to have this service provider actually construct this fence, because one of the things is that their grading is also called into question as to whether they were competent to actually construct the kind of project which they were given. And so we fundamentally believe that this transaction must be used as a yardstick measure to test all other COVID-19 related projects. The modus operandi that was used to abuse emergency procurement and the invoking of variations where none should have existed. The fact that other service providers were not asked to submit tenders and proposals because the market was not tested. And so the 37 million rand price tag is baseless in the sense that it is not comparative to other competitive bids. So all those things combined for us tell us that there was a blatant intention to actually loot the state. And so the SIU will have to cancel this contract and pursue recoveries of the losses the state has incurred and actually make sure that there are successful prosecutions.
Well, yeah, there you go. That was where I was going to ask you. Accountability. I mean, we're seeing here that there are 14 implicated officials in the Department of Public Works. Let's turn. So that's where we're at right now. Let's also turn our attention to Minister Patricia de Lille. What accountability should she have? We've spoken to her on the program. She is adamant that this must be investigated, action must be taken, but surely the action should also be taken against her.
Yes, the directive which she issued has got some areas around it which are called into question and will require further probing. Some 10 days ago when we met with the officials of National Treasury and DPWI SCOPA, the issue was raised particularly by National Treasury. And so we directed that the minister's role and the directive, because she was entitled and she is within her right to issue a directive, but it's the content and the very prescriptive nature of the directive which may have triggered some of the things which have happened in terms of how they were done. So she will also have to be investigated, and she has committed to cooperate with the National Treasury investigation that we have directed must happen. Having said that, it does not mean that the 14 departmental employees are off the hook. they will have to also account for their own action, including the Director General of the department and the Minister's advisor, whom are implicated in the 14. And so I'm sure that we will be getting special permission to meet during the recess period of Parliament to get an update report in terms of the progress that is being made with those investigations. But what we are not going to actually, forego is the fact that investigations must happen, because the list is very clear, the transgressions are very clear, the SIU has been very concise in its investigation. Its outcomes are corroborated by the National Treasury investigation, and the fact that the Auditor General will also be doing a statutory audit on these things.
Yeah.
So what we don't want is excuses from the law enforcement
Indeed.
agencies.
And
all the evidence is there.
You just finally, as we wrap this, you have been very scathing about that, and you yourself have said that the wheels of justice are turning far too slowly. People are fed up, and that we still have not seen high-profile prosecutions. We're speaking just of this border case, but you've done so many other investigations. The evidence is there, the findings are there, but the wheels of justice are not doing their job. This is very frustrating. You have yourself said that. I'm busy reading your comments that you spoke about. Now, I mean, do you think that something will actually come of this? I mean, your strong comments, will we see action being taken?
I want to indicate the end that to the law enforcement agencies that if they continue on a trajectory wherein consequence management and successful prosecutions are absent, then they are aiding and abetting the corruption. They will be complicit in the corruption that's taking place. And so the law enforcement agencies will be well served to shape up and to actually step up to the plate. They've wanted resources. They may not be adequate, but what they have is sufficient for them to begin processes of successful prosecution. We are not going to accept further excuses. I mean, I think that message has been communicated very succinctly to the law enforcement agencies. And here is a classic case now, and they must prove themselves that they are equal to the task of the responsibilities that they have.
Mkhuleko Hlengwa, thank you for talking to us, the chairperson of SCOPA. Pleasure commenting on the Beitbridge border conundrum after 3 governmental institutions, including SCOPA, visited the location for inspection and found gross mismanagement, corruption, and many other things that point to mass corruption there. Let's quickly take